Thanks for watching Cosmic Cousins Soul-Centered Astrology. I am your host, Jeff Hinshaw. Cosmic Cousins is a visual astrology podcast dedicated to making astrology accessible through embodied health, self-discovery, and ritual immersion. Cosmic Cousins is made possible by the generosity of our Patreon supporters. If you'd like to deepen your studies, visit cosmiccousins.com for workshop downloads and other offerings. Thanks as always for tuning in. Hey, Cosmic Cousins. Welcome to our Scorpio New Moon podcast episode. We have a really exciting episode this week because I'll be in an intimate conversation and interview with double Scorpio musician Lilith O'Rourke of Heirloom. But before we get into that, I do have a little bit of announcements, and I'd like to connect with you on the Scorpio New Moon. So just a few announcements. This is now a podcast that is visual as well as audio. So if you are listening to the audio version on Spotify or iTunes, you can now also listen and watch the visual presentation on YouTube. And if you would like, you could subscribe and like. And once we hit 1,000 subscribers, we'll start doing these podcast episodes live. And that will be really awesome to connect with you in that way. And I hope that you'll consider subscribing. There's also a newsletter for the Cosmic Cousins podcast, and you can find the link in the show notes. And I think that's all the announcements I have for you for today. I want to get into the Scorpio New Moon, and Scorpio is a very direct energy, so let's get to it. So I always offer 3 phrases for each new and full moon episode. The phrases I have for us for this Scorpio New Moon is I harness, I transform, I release. I harness, I transform, I release. And Scorpio, being such a unconscious water sign, it likes to go into the depths of things. So I have the definition of these 3 words for us to marinate in. And again, these 3 phrases are here for you to help guide you. You could journal about these phrases and how you're feeling them in your life. You could pull a tarot card for these 3. I always love when people do that. And then they share it on Instagram, and I'll reshare your tarot spread if you want to connect with others in the Cosmic Cousins community. But the definitions of these 3 words, I harness, control and make use of natural resources, especially to produce energy. To control and make use of natural resources, especially to produce energy. I really like this definition of harness because of its connection to natural resources. And we know Scorpio's polar sign is Taurus, which is going to connect us to our resources, and so does Scorpio. So this is what this polarity is teaching us. So how are you harnessing your energy on this Scorpio New Moon? You know, new moons are a time for us to go within and to realign. It can be a time where we're setting new intentions as well. Our next word and phrase is I transform. Here's the definition. Make a thorough or dramatic change in the form, appearance, or character of. So how are you transforming on this new moon? And oftentimes when we have these transformative moments, there will be a release as well. And the definition of release is to set free from restraint, confinement, or servitude. So there is this opportunity to set ourselves free, particularly around karmic patternings. So the new moon is the time where the sun and the moon line up together. And so you can think the sun hanging out with the moon is an opportunity to shine conscious light, which is the sun, to our underworld, to the unconscious, to things beneath the surface, the moon, which is quite very Scorpio in its invitation. So in many ways, and I always kind of feel this during the Scorpio new moon, that it's the new moon of all new moons, right? It's the dark night, the new moon, and Scorpio is a sign of darkness and the depth. And when we go into that depth, we can then transform it into the light. And this is often why Scorpio is a sign that is connected to psychology or esoteric and occult studies. So we might find ourselves reconnecting to these practices during the Scorpio new moon. I know for me, I have my tarot cards out, and I have the death card here, which I can share with you here. This is Scorpio's soul growth, which I find quite interesting, you know, because having death as a soul growth for Scorpio, oftentimes the soul growth cards don't necessarily come naturally to that astrological energy. And so it's interesting, as Scorpio is a sign of death and release, it doesn't mean that death comes naturally to the Scorpio. Actually, as a fixed water sign, Scorpio energy, if you have a lot in your chart, you might find yourself wanting to hold on and grasp. And so I always think with Scorpio, it's till death do us part, do us part. So with Scorpio, things that are naturally coming into a death, Scorpio might say, I don't want to let that go. Scorpio is a fiercely loyal and loving energy. But the soul growth for Scorpio is to honor and acknowledge death and to release oneself from the past in these natural cycles of evolution. And so the Scorpio new moon, it can bring up a lot of emotion for you. And if not emotion, it could also be fuel. And sometimes it can be connected hand in hand. Oftentimes Scorpio is considered to be the fiery water sign because its modern ruler, or traditional ruler, is Mars. So, you know, if this new moon is bringing up a lot of emotion for you, that emotion can also be used as fuel for transforming your life. So transformation is always key when working with Scorpio and with the moon. And this is transformation from within the self. But what I think is important to remember, and the death card actually in the tarot will remind us of that, is that death does not happen in an instant. It's not overnight. These transformations can take time. So you might be intuitively feeling on this new moon that something is ready to die, to release, so that you can then transform. And so be gentle with yourself on this new moon. And, you know, I can pull up the chart here too, and I'm gonna, you know, Scorpio being a sign that's connected to the esoteric and the occult is also connected to divinatory practices. So I have these 3 dice here that I wanted to roll, and these are 12-sided dice, and on each dice it has astrological glyphs. And so the blue dice is planetary glyphs, the purple dice is the numbers 1 through 12, which is the 12 houses. And then the green dice is the 12 different astrological symbols. And so I thought, you know, Scorpio energy, it can sometimes feel dark, you know, but I also find it to be quite playful too, which divination, these tools like tarot, is important to remember that it is a deck of playing cards originally that was then used and upgraded to be an incredible tool for self-reflection. So I have the chart here for the Scorpio new moon, and you'll see it's the Scorpio new moon at the 12th degree in 40 minutes. So you can look to your own astrological chart to see where this new moon is lining up with and where you might be called to go within to set new intentions. And we'll also see across the wheel, this is really important, is Uranus and Taurus at the 12th degree. And so this is, you know, Uranus is a sudden change. Cosmic insight is Uranus. You know, Uranus is that planet that was discovered that allowed us to understand that the solar system went beyond the confines and the boundaries of Saturn, which Saturn is the planet that is still visible by the naked eye. But once we get out to Uranus, we expand into the cosmos beyond the naked eye. So Uranus is a planet that represents cosmic wisdom and insight that takes us into the future. So on this new moon, what are you harnessing? How are you transforming? What are you releasing? What's ready to die and to be transmuted? But also, how is that opening you up to this radical new vision that you might hold for the future, Uranus, and that which you are manifesting and bringing into the earthly realm, Taurus, into the body, into the material? So there is that polarity happening on this new moon. So I think that's important, but the dice, when we roll them, will highlight maybe something else that might be important for us to check in with on this new moon. And so I'm going to take a deep breath, and I invite you to take a deep breath too. We always do this on Cosmic Cousins because astrology can also be felt in the body. And so I'm going to hold the dice here down at the lower belly. This is the part of the body that Scorpio is connected to, is the reproductive organs, the womb, the bladder, the anus, the hips. So go ahead and take a deep, nourishing inhale in there. And then as you exhale, you can relax through this part of the body and the energetic body. This is the sacral chakra. Svadhisthana is the Sanskrit word for the sacral, which means one's own sacred place. And so we're honoring this sacred part of the body and all the wisdom that it holds for us as we tune into these divinatory dice. Interesting. Very direct. We said Scorpio is a direct energy. So what we have here is it's highlighting the first house, Mars, which is the traditional ruler for Scorpio, and Aries. This is all first house Aries, Mars, going on here. So this is interesting. So when I see Mars just entered Scorpio a few days before the Scorpio new moon. On the Scorpio new moon, Mars is at the 3rd degree of Scorpio. And so Mars is at home in the sign of Scorpio. But what I find interesting about this energy is Mars, is an excavator when we're in Scorpio. You can think of like digging into the earth, using your ambition and your drive and your willpower to go deeper and to release. And so there's also a bit of cord cutting that Mars highlights here too. And so, as Mars is in Scorpio, it's almost at this new moon that we get the opportunity to reflect, pause, tune in to what wants to come forward. And, Mars is going to have a showdown throughout November. It's going to be across from Uranus, opposing Uranus, and square to Saturn and Aquarius. If you want to learn more about Mars and Scorpio, the previous podcast episode where I hang out with Taylor Ursula of That's So Pisces, we go into the November forecast of the astrological transits for 2021. So you can learn more there. It's also highlighting the first house, which is Aries house too. And so I'm looking towards the Aries energy over here too. We still have Chiron in Aries and Eris in Aries. And we're coming off of the Aries full moon, which was the last full moon lunation. And then here in the first house in this chart, you'll see this is cast for Portland, Oregon at 2:14 p.m. on November 4th, 2021. And so the first house here contains Saturn in Aquarius and Jupiter in Aquarius. And so there is this energy that is squaring the new moon. Saturn in Aquarius is square the new moon. And so the structures that you're creating in your life right now, Saturn, to connect you to the interweb of humanity is somehow in tension here. And so Saturn in Aquarius, Aquarian energy wants to make information available to all people, whereas Scorpio might want to contain it within. So some of the message that I'm feeling into here is that on this Scorpio new moon, it's an opportunity for you to really tune into what is yours, what do you want to keep private, and what do you want to share with others in the collective. So I'm wishing for you a easeful Scorpio new moon. It can be a time where you really gift yourself time to connect to your ancestors and to acknowledge the land on which you dwell. And we do this in our conversation with Lilith O'Rourke. And I'm excited about this conversation because we dive deep into many topics. Lilith is a Gemini sun with a Scorpio moon and a Scorpio rising. And so we talk about the intersection of Gemini and Scorpio energy. We discuss processing grief through creativity. And we do that by listening to 3 of Lilith's songs, heirloom songs. We also get into a conversation about queer joy. So yes, Scorpio new moon blessings to you. Scorpio energy reminds us to acknowledge the past and our ancestors. And in honor of this, Lilith and I start our conversation out with a land acknowledgement, and then we transition into our conversation. So at this time, on this Scorpio new moon, you can go ahead and bring your loving awareness to your body and your breath and the land on which you reside. Yeah.
It feels so Scorpio to me, like I think especially in Australia, because, and the same with you in the US, we have a colonizer history here, right? Yeah. So like this land has been taken. And I think that to me, connecting to the grief of that feels very Scorpio, and honoring that feels very Scorpio to me. Yeah. And the desire to transform that feels very Scorpio to me too. Yes. Yeah.
Like the parts that people don't necessarily want to communicate about too.
Absolutely. It's in the shadow. It's in the collective shadow of white colonial, I don't even want to say history because it's the now, unfortunately, right. It feels very connected to that. Yeah. So I would just like to acknowledge that I'm speaking to you from stolen land. I'm on the land of the Gumbaynggirr people in so-called Australia, and just want to acknowledge that sovereignty of this country was never ceded, and that this was and always will be Aboriginal land. Yeah, thank you.
I heard a crow again. The crows are here. I don't know if it's on your end or my end, but
it might be both.
Yeah. And with that, this is such a good reminder for me to be sharing that too. And so I acknowledge the land on which I sit and on which I occupy, which is the Portland metro area. And it rests on traditional village sites of the Multnomah, the Wasco, the Cowlitz, and many other tribes who made their homes along the Columbia River that created communities and summer encampments to harvest and use the plentiful resources of the land. So it is, Scorpio season does offer us a time to have the opportunity to thank the original caretakers of whatever land that you're currently occupying. It's interesting that Scorpio time and time again brings it back to the earth.
Yeah.
And to the landscape and to the beauty of nature. So
absolutely. I think there's a certain dissolving of the boundaries that happens with Scorpio, because I perceive that, especially through that like watery womb space, you can, which is genderless, by the way. I just want to really point that out. Like, that you can connect into the water of everything else around you, the spiritual water of everything around you. So I think we feel, when we tap into Scorpio, very acutely that everything around us has history and is alive.
This is a quote from Mary Lyons. When we talk about land, and land is part of who we are, it's a mixture of our blood, our past, our current, and our future. We carry our ancestors in us, and they're around us, as you all do. So here with us today on Cosmic Cousins, it is such an honor, and I'm super excited to introduce you to the incredible musician, Lilith O'Rourke of Heirloom. Did I say Heirloom?
That's right.
Okay, good. Yeah. I thought so. Where did that name come from?
Yeah, that's a good one. So heirloom, I mean, the meaning of the word is something passed down and precious, like a family heirloom.
Right.
And for me, I sing for the people in my lineage, my ancestors that couldn't or weren't allowed to for various reasons. And also for the people in the collective, who may not be on stage, but still have things to say. Yeah.
I mean, everything you're saying, like, we are already getting a taste of the embodiment of your birth chart. I'm feeling the Scorpio come through here. And so you're a Gemini sun, Scorpio moon, Scorpio rising. We're going to get into your whole chart today. And I'm excited about it because, as I've been listening to your music and just spending time meditating on your chart, preparing for this interview, I felt a new meaning of Cosmic Cousins, what Cosmic Cousins means to me, which is cool that your gift and your offering to the collective is also opening up windows for other people to connect more deeply with their offering. That's what I feel from it. It's such a cool feeling. And the reason why you've connected me more deeply to Cosmic Cousins is because I feel so connected to you cosmically. And I feel how much you have a relationship to celestial bodies in your work. It feels super cosmic. Yeah. And I feel related to you in this interesting, cool way. And I guess I knew that when I named my offering Cosmic Cousins, but I feel it even more with you. I feel a certain kinship with you. And I imagine a lot of others listening do too. You're speaking so directly to many themes that we're all moving through in the collective. We'll get into all of that today. And maybe this is a reflection of your Gemini nature, because Gemini is our cousin. Gemini is our sibling. And I feel that with you. So I just wanted to reflect that back and just say thank you for being here. I feel like we're longtime friends, and we're also new friends too.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So
thank you.
Yeah. how do you connect to being a Gemini? Does that feel reflective for you? And as a
Yeah.
musician too, I'm curious, like with your craft as a singer and an artist, how Gemini comes through for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to say as well, everything you just said, like I resonated with so deeply. And it also feels like you reflected part of my mission statement back to me, you know? So it feels really affirming and like a deepening of my own practice to hear that reflected back. So thank you.
Yeah.
In terms of how I connect to Gemini, especially, yeah, musically and as an artist, I feel like I have quite a direct connection to something outside of myself. That is also deeply part of myself, which feels very Gemini to me, the messenger, you know?
Yeah.
I feel mercurial by nature in lots of ways, you know. I even think of the like silvery element of Mercury, you know, and I really feel that coming through when I sing, like it's a fluid that moves through me.
Yeah.
And I think there's a particular type of Gemini psychic energy. It's like that air psychic energy that sort of picks things up from just sometimes just next to me or just around me, you know.
Yeah.
And I do a lot of improvised singing, which to me also feels very Gemini, right?
Mhm.
Like quick with the mouth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
just one way.
Yeah, and I love you naming, because for me, air signs are psychic, and we usually
Mm-hmm.
talk about water signs as being psychic. But if we think
Mm-hmm.
about thought waves, to be psychic is to read someone else's mind and to know what someone else is thinking. And when we're thinking of Gemini, the twins, it's like twins are so psychically connected to each other and they know what the other one's thinking without even talking. So it can sometimes even be, nonverbal communication.
Yeah.
And I do even think, and we're going to get the opportunity to look at some of your music videos today, there is a
Mm-hmm.
Gemini way in which you move and that you explore the world around you. And, there's a
Mm-hmm.
curiosity and a whimsy and magic to it, all of it. And when you were even talking about channeling, it made me think of the magician and the tarot, which is connected to Mercury. And so
Yes.
there is that the magical quality that you bring to your work. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I think in my music videos as well, there's a tactile element to them. You know, there's like my skin is touching things. I'm like in the environment, especially with my hands.
Yeah.
And I feel like even when I sing, I'm touching air. I want to like reach out and like hold what's around me, which
Yeah.
again feels very Gemini for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and share the screen so we can look at the chart. And so for those of you listening, if you're just listening to the audio of the podcast, this is the first time we are ever going a visual and an interview. And you don't want to miss this because we've got some beautiful color action going on here.
We do.
Yeah.
And that was a psychic moment. We did not plan this.
There's a very Gemini twin thing going on here.
Yeah.
So I decided to wear a bright orange shirt today because... Why? What's your connection to orange?
I have extremely orange hair for anyone that's not seeing this right now.
Mm-hmm.
My connection to orange was intuitive at first, to be honest with you. Like I just loved it. But then when I deepened into a little bit, I realized it's the color of the sacral chakra. And I feel very sacral, like the waters of the womb. It's also a big center for creativity. And also for community connection. I feel like a very sacral connection with other people. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you for dropping us into this part of the body and the energetic body. It's a really great reminder. And, Gemini is we're starting with Gemini because it's your sun sign, but you're the Scorpio moon. You're the Scorpio rising. And Scorpio is connected to the sacral chakra and this part of the body. And what's been so interesting is, and I can't wait to talk to you about Scorpio season on the Southern Hemisphere.
Yeah.
But for me now, I have this cool opportunity. There's a cemetery a few blocks away. And I usually go during Taurus and Scorpio season is the time of year where I make it more part of my ritual. And as I've been walking through the cemetery, listening to your music, the trees are popping off. They're bright orange. And I'm like, there's Lilith, our Lily, everywhere I go. And so I feel Scorpio has this vibrancy to it that I see in nature around me. So I am curious to hear what your relationship is to Scorpio fixed in the middle of spring.
Mm-hmm.
My mind's firing off in so many different directions. So I just asked that question. I was going somewhere else with the colors, but we'll get back to that in a moment.
That's okay. I actually feel like they're related anyway. So,
okay, cool.
And here's why. So for me, other people may argue or they may agree, and both are fine. I actually feel like spring is such a Scorpio season. I feel like Scorpio is embodied in spring so perfectly. And maybe it's because it's the only way I've ever known Scorpio. But for me, it's like, that's transformation right there, embodied in spring so strongly, you know, and thinking of the way that life returns after winter. Is that not so Scorpio? I don't know.
Yeah.
I just feel that so strongly. And also to think about the Northern Hemisphere experiencing the inward motion sort of and towards death, like towards decay, you know, while the Southern Hemisphere is experiencing the mirror. For me also feels like an invitation into the polar of Taurus in a way, like dipping into the sensuality of spring, you know, as well. And as a Scorpio, I need to be reminded to come into my body sometimes, you know, I need that reminder. Definitely. So spring brings me into the sensual and reminds me that there's life after death.
Yeah. It's so cool because it what it does especially when we get to connect to someone on the other side of the world who is deeply immersed in their astrology practice like you are, and we get to feel into what the invitation of being soul-centered is in our astrology practice, which is finding a balance between the polar signs of the wheel. And so in order to be fully embodied in Scorpio, we have to have Taurus. And so by meditating on Scorpio season during the middle of spring and in the middle of autumn, we get that cycle of life and death. Because right now, the world around me, everything is shedding and dying. But it's so beautiful to connect with you and know that things are blooming.
Yeah. I had my first flowers blooming in my garden just this last week, you know, some of the first, and it just feels so Scorpio. I'm like, oh, thank you for reminding me that after a time of decay, we have to bloom again, you know?
Yeah. And you may have seen when I was sharing some of the clips of you on Instagram, I had 2 wilting red roses and then a butterfly, which are the zodiac emojis for Scorpio and Gemini. And so it's interesting that Scorpio is the wilting red rose. There's still, and I have this rose here in honor of Scorpio. Yeah. There's something so romantic and passionate about, you know, nature expressing love and poetry. And so I'm feeling that with your expression of your hair too, and the vibrancy and the fieriness of it. And, you know, Scorpio is traditionally ruled by Mars too. So these reds and oranges that take us into the root and the sacral, just reflecting on it and feeling into it and appreciative of it. And it's interesting how just listening to your music and walking during this time of year, I get to notice the trees' vibrancies and how that feels like an expression of you too. And I'm curious if there was a moment in time where you're like going through maybe a death rebirth where you're like, I'm going to dye my hair. This is, you know, because I think of the trees, they're like express themselves right before they die, you know?
Yep. No, you're right on with that one. Another psychic moment for sure. So I dyed my hair orange. Oh gosh, it may have been 4 years ago now. It may have been a little longer, but I know that around that time period, I was stepping out of a 6-year-long relationship. And that was a relationship where I was still very much hiding my queerness. I was still very much presenting as a woman, even though I'm non-binary. I wasn't sort of allowing that to come through yet. There was a lot moving for me at that time. I also stepped out of a musical project where I was in a band and chose the name Heirloom and became a solo artist. And I dyed my hair orange. You know, it was like very long and very dark. And it was like stepping into the other presentation of Scorpio in a way, the vibrancy rather than the depth and the darkness, you know, huge transformation for me.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to pull up your chart. I was going to pull it up earlier and I hadn't yet. So let's pull it up because there's so many things in your chart that you embody. And, you know, when we're talking about vibrancy too, you have this Leo midheaven.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can also feel the orange and the public appearance of the 10th house too. We'll get more into that in a moment. But for now, I would like, since we're gathering here for the Scorpio new moon, to bring our awareness to the Scorpio rising, moon in Scorpio, Scorpio rising, Pluto in Scorpio. So why don't we go ahead and listen to a song?
Sure.
You know, so we can feel into it, allow everyone who's listening to just have a moment to get to know you and your work if they don't already. And then we'll talk a little bit more about your chart. But I asked you, you know, 3 songs that you thought would be really cool for us to listen to. And I'm curious which one intuitively you feel like would be great for us to start off with as an introduction, and particularly as we're starting to connect to Scorpio here.
Oh, I feel like I chose my 3 most Scorpio songs, you know, so they all feel relevant. I mean, the title, perhaps Body of Water, you know, is sort of resonating with me right now. So maybe we should start there.
That's what I was thinking. I was feeling that one too. So before we listen to it, why don't we look at some of the lyrics for Body of Water? Oh, here they are. Okay. Boom. All right. For some reason, those weren't pulled up. Okay. So here we have Body of Water. So lay the water of my body across the hollow in the earth, sheltering the soft ones there. Let them rise when this is done. So what was the inspiration for this song for you?
Yeah. So in late 2019, early 2020, some truly catastrophic bushfires really tore through the Australian landscape. Millions and millions of animals perished in that fire. People's lives were lost and millions of hectares were burnt as well. So this song for me was an acknowledgement that climate change is here, that we are responsible for it. And it was just an outpouring of grief. And I thought of it as literally an offering of water for fire, you know. This first, you know, verse in particular was my desire to literally lay the actual water of my body, like my blood, across the earth as an offering, but also to protect the innocent lives that were lost.
I'm sorry, but don't forgive me. I'm sorry, but don't forgive me. And so we feel so much of Scorpio coming through here in this acknowledgement of the earth and, you know, connecting to fully grieving. And why don't we listen to this song and watch the music video, and then we'll reflect afterwards.
Perfect.
I know I've been greedy, gone is the air now. We didn't think to breathe. Oil from your branches anoints the seas. Gone is the air now. We didn't think to breathe. Breathe. Breathe.
It's been a moment since I've seen that. It was sort of difficult to watch.
Yeah. It feels, there you have to pause and take it in and breathe into it. There's so much intention put into the lyrics, the movement. It's more than just you being a musician. It's ritual.
Yeah, it does feel like ritual in a major way. I think every time I sing that's true. But this piece in particular, the recording of it was a ritual. Filming of it was a ritual. Even the editing of it was a ritual. I edited the entire thing in a single sitting, in a very intentional way. And yeah, it's just that piece was a big turning point for me personally. And yeah, sorry, I'm getting a little bit like.
Yeah. Yeah. So when making this video, and I heard you say that you edited it.
I did, yeah.
Did you shoot it yourself as well?
So I wasn't holding the camera, obviously. A good friend of mine, Georgia, shot this with me. We just did it on her iPhone. We just went out into the bush together, dropped into the land and just did it. Yeah, in a single day.
It's so beautiful. And your music videos, just the cinematography of it is like, it feels, so carefully crafted and intentional.
Thank you.
And, the sensuality in this too. I mean, the ritual, the sensuality, we feel the Scorpio energy coming in that is also processing grief while doing it. And even like the digging in the dirt is something I think of with Scorpio. And this like fierce quality to it that's also gentle at the same time. Like I feel that, Scorpio is often said to be a warrior, just like Aries is, but more in an emotional capacity and with the attributes of healing water, which is exactly what you're doing in this video. And the landscape of the barren trees too speak to that fiery nature of Scorpio. I always say Scorpio is the fiery water sign. So it's interesting that you're bringing these two elements together. And we feel your Gemini playfulness too in it.
In the tree spirit. That video.
And so you're painted in like a mime quality is how I would describe it, which feels quite Gemini. And
I don't know if you
the
can
connection
see
to that? Oh yeah.
But I've got these little sort of mime clown dolls everywhere. I feel that Gemini in some ways is a bit of a sacred clown. Like I get very sacred clown energy from Gemini.
Definitely.
And I think it's that embodiment that clowns and the mimes have for me anyway, that everything is sacred and nothing is sacred at the same time. There's a real duality for me in mimes and in clowns. So that was very intentional in the video. And I saw it as like a mime and a tree spirit trying to return home. And so there's this sort of surreal quality to it, but also a quite serious and emotional quality to it. Mm-hmm.
And we also talked about Gemini having a nonverbal quality, which is something that mimes do.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're so Scorpio too, because they're touching on our deepest emotions, right? Clowns touch on fear, on laughter. They touch on community. They bring us together. And I feel like for me, that water equality is so Scorpio too. Yeah.
So what has it felt like? You said this was a turning point for you, making this song and this video. And did that come easily, that transition, or was there, obstacles that you encountered? And what does it feel like for you to share something like this that is so deeply vulnerable, particularly now where there's, cancel culture and people having thoughts on everything, and it's deep, and so it's gonna reflect both Gemini and Scorpio do this. They reflect back to us our light and our dark. So, what has it been like for you to kind of shift into doing this work?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a double Scorpio, so do things ever come easily to me? No, no. But they come, that's for sure. And I think I feel strongly that part of my job is to reflect the shadow. It really is, but to make it beautiful, to show that like you can shine a light on the shadow without obliterating it. You can actually shine a light on it to show that it's beautiful and that it can be held, it can be loved, and it can be brought home. So for me, is it worth it to do things like this in our current, cancel hammer society, all of those things? Yes. And I think that it's a path that all artists, especially artists who communicate with spirit, have to walk. Yeah.
And this was this end of 2019, beginning of 2020?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So right before the global pandemic.
Exactly.
Started. So there's been a buildup to this pandemic, and that I remember the fires very strongly when they were happening. I believe it was during Capricorn season, I want to say.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, 2019 into 2020 when a lot of that was happening. Okay. So really powerful. And when we look at your chart, we see this Scorpio energy. You have Scorpio Moon in the 12th house, which is a vibe. And then you have all this Pisces going on too. And I think it's kind of hard not to talk about your Pisces.
Yeah.
When tuning into your Scorpio, because they are connected. So let me pull these up here. Okay. And so you have Saturn in Pisces, Vesta in Pisces, Pallas, Athene in Pisces, and then Black Moon, Lilith in Pisces. And what's interesting when we look at your chart is that this Saturn, Vesta, Pallas conjunction is talking to your Scorpio moon. And I'm curious if you've ever kind of differentiated between the two. And then Lilith so they're talking to, meaning they're trine. And whenever planets are in the same element, within 5 degrees of each other, they're trine. And so Vesta and Pallas are trine your moon. But then Lilith is later on in Pisces at the 25th degree trine your Pluto. And we could also include the rising perhaps, but trine Pluto in Scorpio. And so, Lilith and Pluto's connection feels a little bit more deep, and like we're going in, we're going to be transforming our sexuality and queerness. And then Vesta and Pallas and Saturn, there's a shift, but I'm noticing these 4 Piscean placements feel really important to understanding your Scorpio, and especially being in the fifth house of creative expression. This is a musician having all this Pisces here in the fifth house. And really, you know, Saturn stepping up and committing to it.
Yeah.
And so Pisces is processing the emotions of the collective. And that's why I'm bringing it up, because that feels so much about your work.
Yeah.
Which we could say Scorpio does that too, but Scorpio is usually a little bit more interpersonal, like a therapist helps process your grief, whereas Pisces is more connected to the collective at large. So the Pisces comes through really strongly, and that love of compassion, universal compassion, that, you know, this song, Body of Water, is connecting us to the world at large. So I did want to just reflect this Piscean energy coming through.
Yeah, I feel it very strongly, you know, and what you were saying about processing the emotions and the grief of the collective versus in Pisces versus Scorpio's more interpersonal and personal processing of those things. I feel that in the way that I process the collective grief by processing my personal grief.
Yeah.
So in my music, you know, I'm saying lay the water of my body across the earth, you know, and I think that speaks to Pisces communicating with Scorpio. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Pisces connects us to the water in the body, where all of the water, including Scorpio's water in the body, which Scorpio's water in the body would be, you know, the womb, the bladder, this part of the body, but Pisces is all of it. And then you have Mercury in Cancer too. You're a Gemini ruled by Mercury in a water sign. And so there's a lot of water going on here.
Yeah.
When I feel into this, the Scorpio for you too, I feel it reflected in your newest song that you've released, Flesh to Flower.
Yeah.
Which
Definitely.
is your own personal relationship to grief and loss. And then you then share it with the collective too. And so Flesh to Flower, we'd love to hear what was the inspiration for this song.
Yeah. So Flesh to Flower was written for my little brother who passed away in, gosh, my head has just gone blank. It was in 2019. Big year.
Yeah, big year.
Yeah. So after he passed away in an accident very suddenly, and about 10 days after he passed, I went and saw a shaman who we sang to his spirit to help him move on, and it was a really big experience for me. And she called in the medicine of a hummingbird to guide me after that. And then the next day, 3 tiny birds landed outside my window and told me to write 3 songs for my brother. And Flesh to Flower is one of those 3 songs. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We had so many people write in about this song.
Wow.
And saying, I lost my brother.
Wow.
And I feel like this song is speaking directly to me. And so we had, you know, one question come in, and this is from ZL McDonald on Instagram, and says, what has been most helpful in your grieving healing process? I lost my brother as well.
Well, firstly, I just want to extend some genuine love to you, because that loss will be with you forever, you know, in some way. And that deserves holding so tenderly, you know. And I think that tender holding actually has been one of my greatest tools in grief. And not just the tender holding of other people, but of myself, you know, of not trying to get over grief. I think that that's really actually counterintuitive. I think you have to accept that grief is a part of you now, and to let it deepen your experience of life. Art obviously was huge for me, but to be honest with you, astrology was enormous for me in processing grief. I think I looked to astrology to make meaning of it, to give some sense of purpose and order to something that felt very chaotic and senseless at the time. And when I looked to especially my Scorpio placements, I realized this is part of my path, actually. This is my initiation. This is my soul initiation into, like, can I truly transform this darkness into light? You know, what is it? Warrior am I, and from the battle I emerge triumphant.
Yes.
How is that embodied anywhere more strongly than in living through loss and grief?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as I'm looking at your chart, I'm noticing the moon in Scorpio in the 12th.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Scorpio rising, Pluto and Scorpio in the 1st. And in some ways, it feels like this moon in Scorpio is that deeply personal moon connection to family and loss that you experience 12th house, that's letting go.
Yeah.
And then the Scorpio rising is then, it's also part of your path to then share it with the world and to be seen in that way.
Yeah.
Whereas I'd be curious, if it was moon and Scorpio in the 12th house and you weren't a Scorpio rising, maybe you have a Sag rising, if it would be so much of your offering that you're sharing. But having this double Scorpio nature, it's so deeply personal to you, moon, and it's also your potential that you're rising into.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel sometimes they're a support of each other, but also that they're intention. Because sometimes I do want to keep that moon, in the midst of the 12th house, actually, and to even like leave it behind. Like I want to like that sort of 12th house way of wanting to eject almost from the earth a little bit, but then it's like the Scorpio rising comes through and I feel it say like, no, like we persevere, actually. That's what we do here, and then my Leo midheaven wants to put it on stage. So don't have much choice.
Totally. Yeah. When I'm reflecting on the Scorpio moon in the 12th, it's and maybe I'll get into that after. I think for now, let's stay focused on this song.
Sure.
And let's listen to it. Let's watch the video. And also, this is a good reminder for us for realignment. We're gathering for the Scorpio New Moon episode. And so the Scorpio New Moon is a time where we can honor our loved ones who have passed away from this earthly plane.
Yeah.
And so I encourage you, as you're listening to this song, to bring someone to mind and heart that you are honoring on this Scorpio New Moon. And anything you would like to say before we watch or listen?
Yeah, I feel like with this song, I really wanted to invite people into the idea that death is not an ending, that you can actually find real beauty and real magic in the experience as well, as well as acknowledging your very human fear and terror. You can actually see the softness and the magic in it too. So maybe if you can just hold some space in your heart for that sort of dual nature of death while you're listening as well.
Beautiful. Thank you. So let's listen to this song now. Flesh to Flower.
Will it eat me gently when it does? And will it burn me
For Maddie, the cheekiest little brother in the world, I love you. I'll see you on the other side. I just wanted to read that for those that are just listening to the audio.
Yeah, there's that little bit of Gemini coming through at the end there.
And Gemini throughout the whole thing, really.
Yeah.
There's a lot. I was like taking notes, which feels very Gemini.
I could feel your astrology brain smiling through that.
Yeah. So some of the Gemini things, it reminded me of, so I had two best friends growing up that were brother and sister that lived down the street from me. All of this is Gemini, your neighbors, their siblings, and we played in the backyard in the creek. And this music video was so nostalgic and reminiscent of childhood. And I was wondering as I was watching it, if you were in some ways rekindling your childhood relationship with your brother.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly it. We were so close when I was little, and so many of my memories are of us getting up to so much mischief. We lived in the country, so much mischief, just doing things out in the bush that we should not have been doing. And this video clip really took me back to that. Yeah.
It's quite emotional to watch and to witness and to be taken back to these childhood memories, and also to feel the backstory of you processing your grief around those memories too. And it's so deep and also lovely at the same time. And the other part that feels quite Gemini to me is the questions. You're listing off it's like you still are having this dialogue and conversation and the curiosity of what the transition was like to the other side. And so, do you think of me, was the one question that I wrote down. And is this been, when you were writing the song, did you find yourself wanting to still make contact, and do you make contact? And if you do, does it come through in words, or is it feelings, or like through synchronicities like birds, these sort of things?
All of the above. Gemini's so connected to synchronicity. My life is one big synchronicity. So when I wrote this song, like the actual time that I was writing it, I was laying on my back playing my ukulele and just singing directly to my brother, and these were the questions I was asking him. The lyrics are actually unchanged from that first improvisation. So it is exactly that. It's a conversation with my brother. Yeah. And with life too, will it eat me gently when it does? Will the earth take me gently when I die? It's questions to death, to life, and to my brother.
Yeah. And so some of them feel more playful, like Gemini, and some of that does the one about the earth feels more connected to Scorpio. And that is something that I feel so strongly in the visual presentation of your work, is that feels so deeply Scorpio to me, is the landscape, is the nature, and I don't think I would have known that about Scorpio until doing the Zodiac Queens project. And I remember the final two, Bjork, who's one of your inspirations, we'll talk about in a moment, Bjork and Georgia O'Keeffe, the two most Scorpio, both triple Scorpios. I remember finding all of these images of them in these vast, beautiful landscapes. And so when you would put images of them next to each other, it's like they were the same person, just in a different form. And so Bjork being from Iceland and like the crystal blue water and the mountains, and Georgia O'Keeffe being in New Mexico in the desert and just seeing the landscapes. And that's what she's known for, is painting the landscape. So it does feel like when we're watching your visual presentation, there is so much focus on how beautiful nature is here to support us. And I think Scorpios gravitate towards these places.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think I would also add to that I feel that Scorpios gravitate towards natural environments with scale. There's like this sense of I want the external world to mirror my internal world, which feels cavernous, which feels huge and very emotionally large. So being in these big environments feels very comforting to me.
Yeah. Wow, so beautifully put. And I'm thinking about my friend who's a Scorpio who lives in New York City that always is like wanting to leave New York to go somewhere that matches their inside, but they're still drawn. And New York has its own vastness to it too.
Definitely. Yeah.
And
New York's the internet. It's everything's there.
And there's the underworld too. You get on the subway and, all that. So yeah, it's just stunning, the visual component to it too. And there's even just watching you embody your truth, there's a magnetism to it that feels so Scorpio too. Like you draw us in. And so part of the visual too connects us to Pisces. You had a bag of water that had a fish, and it was like a magical fish. It was like a light fit, like light beam fish. And I was so curious where that came through for you. And of course it's connecting me to Pisces in your chart.
Definitely. So the fish idea actually came from the good friend of mine who directed the clip, right? And I didn't notice the Pisces connection literally until this morning. I was like, looking at the video and I'm like, I wonder what we're going to talk about. And I was like, oh my God, I'm carrying the collective grief in a bag. And it really struck me. I was like, wow, this stuff is sometimes unconscious, but really poignant.
And, there is in your chart all of this inner child healing going on, because fifth house is inner child healing. And there's a playfulness to this Piscean energy of carrying a fish, while also you're saying it's holding the grief of the collective too.
Yeah, but it is playful. I mean, you see in the video, I'm smiling at it. I'm like, I found something so magical and I'm curious. Yeah, it's definitely playful.
And then at the end, to close the music video out, you pour the fish into water where a waterfall is. And then it's like 1,000 fish fairies float up towards the cosmos, which is also so Piscean.
Yeah, so Piscean.
So it's such a magical video. I hope that you're watching the visual to it. And sending so much love to you and to Maddie.
Thank you.
Thank you. And my heart goes out to Maddie wherever Maddie is, and I feel Maddie here watching this and is smiling at this music video right now. And this moon in Scorpio in the 12th house we were talking about before. And one thing that I was thinking about is that, at least as far as I remember, you've moved out to more of a rural area. Yes,
I have. Yeah, that's right. I live on a mountain near the rainforest now.
Okay. Wow, that's epic. But also I'm sure has its own challenges too.
It does. I mean, Scorpios don't need much more help isolating themselves, do they? So
especially like in the 12th house, because I think a 12th house, it's like things on the periphery of society. And knowing your moon is there, it's like, this is where my home is.
Yes.
That's a manifestation of it. But it reminded me of how you're like, well, I want to keep some things to myself private. Scorpio moon in the 12th. And, I'm curious if you moved out that way to process your grief. Was that part of the reason?
That's the entirety of the reason. Yeah. It's the entirety of the reason, and it was grief about losing my brother, but it was also a lot of grief that, to be honest with you, was connected with coming into my truth as a transgender and non-binary person, coming more firmly into my truth as a queer person. and also distancing myself from some quite toxic quasi-spiritual community that felt like it was not in alignment with my truth at all. So I had to make the decision to just completely leave to process that. Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Major.
Mm-hmm.
And we look to Lilith often. I call Lilith the queer witch in our chart, and
Mm-hmm.
Lilith is in Pisces, and, trying this part of your chart too. So the themes are connected with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also curious, since this is all fifth house energy, the
Mm-hmm.
Piscean, it does connect us to Leo too. And you have this Leo midheaven up here.
Mm-hmm.
And so visibility is a thing for you. It's like being seen in the public. And, I was talking to Robbie, who's the audio visual technician for Cosmic Cousins. And we were watching your music videos today to prepare. Robbie was like, I think they're going to be really famous.
I love you, Robbie.
And I was like, I feel that too. But you already are. Like you already are. You're Leo midheaven. And so your chart supports it. And you have Juno in Leo, Mars in Leo, and Chiron in Leo.
Yeah.
And I actually commented on one of your posts on Instagram. I was like, Juno midheaven in Leo.
Yeah. Just so everyone knows, it was a video of me like kissing an edible flower out of my partner's mouth. It's very erotic.
Yes. And the reason why I said it's Juno is because Juno's partnership and intimacy, and having it in Leo already is so passionate and romantic in relationship. But it being the highest point in your chart, we want to see you in relationship. We want to see the intimacy. And so this does put whoever you're in relationship with also in the spotlight with you. And yeah, I'm so curious to know, like, have you reflected on Juno in your chart? And what does relationship and visibility mean to you, particularly around the themes of queerness?
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. So look, all the queer people listening to this, maybe you can relate, but like honestly stepping into my queerness and being in my first like really open queer relationship is probably the most transformative experience of my life. I really think it is. And that I'm saying that as a double Scorpio, and I've had a few transformative experiences. Yeah. So I really feel like that visibility changed everything for me. Like finally being seen as something closer to who I am changed everything for me. And it is my greatest joy to witness other people's queer joy and to express my own. It feels like alchemy to me to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that you're using this word joy, which is Leo's soul purpose. And so queer joy, seeing joy in partnership and relationship. Also, as a double Scorpio, your traditional ruler is Mars. So you're also ruled by this very public, creative, joyful energy in the public. We want to see you. And Chiron's there too, though.
Yes.
So, and Mars conjunct Chiron is not subtle.
No, I feel it every day.
It's like digging into the wound and like going deeper. And so there is kind of a Scorpio component to Mars conjunct Chiron.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
I feel it.
Yeah. Well, Chiron is like a psychologist in many ways. Chiron is our ability to compartmentalize our trauma through our intellectual pursuits. So, having Chiron in the 10th house also feels like you as an astrologer or a psychologist for your career. But Leo, it could be leading people to express their inner child, to express their joy through your intellectual pursuits and healing.
Yeah, absolutely. I just really quickly, I offer a type of voice and creativity coaching called voice alchemy that is literally about this. It's like how to step into the joy of your voice, into the spirituality of your voice through healing trauma around your expression and through healing your inner child. So yeah, it feels very much like that Mars and Chiron relationship in Leo.
Yeah. So if someone wanted to work with you, do you have openings or?
look, for cosmic cousins family, yes. Sometimes demand gets high and I have to say no for a little while. But I'm actually stepping into doing it again now. So yes, if you can email me,
really cool.
And I'll hook you up. Yeah.
Well, we might have to have you back on to specifically talk about all of this topic, or
I would love that. Yeah. I have a lot to share about
in
this.
some way. I don't know. That's really cool. I would love to learn more. And it's cool to see, Gemini often has a dual nature. So it's like your Leo energy could be expressed as a musician, but also as a teacher. There's both sides to it, because this fire energy, fire is a teacher, and you've got the North Node in Sagittarius. So it's part of your destiny too. And South Node in Gemini, 1 degree from your sun.
Oh God.
And the moon in Scorpio. So the moon was coming on up to Sagittarius. So you were born just a few days before that Sagittarius full moon eclipse.
Yep.
Yeah. So you are part of eclipse season energy. And we've had this nodal axis the last year and a half of North Node in Gemini since May of 2020, South Node in Sagittarius. And we're recording this at the end of October, going into November of 2021. We're coming to the tail end of this nodal axis. And so you've been in what is called your nodal opposition. And nodal opposition usually kicks off our Saturn return. It usually happens like a year before our Saturn return. So things start bubbling up. And so you do have that Saturn in Pisces at the 0 degree. But I'm so curious what it's been like for you to experience this activation of the nodal axis in opposition to your chart, and if you have thought about it or tuned into it.
I absolutely have. It tuned into me, like it, I was like, what is this tension I'm feeling? What is this? At times for me, it's actually presented as feeling like I'm pushing against a wall and I can't quite get anywhere, And so the invitation for me was, have you read Astrology for the Soul by Jan Spiller?
No, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, I highly recommend to anyone listening. It's really good. So the entire book is just about the nodes, the North and South nodes. And one of the invitations that she speaks about of the Sagittarius North node, which is what's in my chart, is to deepen into the intuition of the heart versus just the mind, right? And also to speak from higher consciousness. And I feel that for me, it's like I've witnessed in this nodal axis that we're currently in, people doing the opposite of that. It's like the shadow of that in the collective has been the opposite of that. And so I've been trying to hold space and compassion for that in the collective while inviting my Sagittarius North node in my personal life. That's what this has felt like for me.
Yeah, that's a beautiful invitation. And I've felt, North Node to Gemini, everything seems so dualistic at this time.
Very split thinking happening in the collective for sure.
Which has its own medicine and time too. Like it makes me think of, in the United States, a lot of conversations have been coming up around racism and acknowledging that racism is very real. It exists. And it's important to look at the world through a binary lens at times too. So it's taught me that. That's one of the many things it's taught me. But it's interesting for you because you do have a South Node in Gemini that you could get pulled into that dichotomy.
Yes, definitely. And I experienced that for sure during this time. Okay.
Well, it's an exciting time for you, and it's going to continue to be, because the nodes of fate will then switch into Scorpio and Taurus. So there's more shifts coming for you, and you are still making new music. And we have the incredible opportunity today to listen to a new song that has never before been heard before. And you're letting the Cosmic Cousins fam, as you say, get a sneak peek of it and listen to it. So let's talk about this new song that's coming out, and it's called Cycles. How very watery.
Yes. This song feels so Scorpio to me, and you'll hear it when you listen. It also speaks a little bit to Cancerian themes for me as well. But this is another of the 3 songs that I wrote for my brother. So the record is
Okay.
called Cycles. And this was the last one I wrote, I believe. So this is the sort of, it feels more reflective maybe than the other 2 feel sort of immediate and in the experience. And this one is a dream reflecting back on the experience of loss.
Also Pisces. It feels like all the water signs.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's the intergenerational component too. You bring in the grandfather here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Saturn in Pisces is in my chart.
Yeah.
Grandfather. Yeah.
There it is. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's go ahead and listen to this song now.
And in the dream he is a bird. I'm teaching how to fly. And I know he has to go. He was born for this goodbye. Twisting, parting ways and stretching out forever to the sky. Oh, brother mine, the male line. And in the dream I see your face, young and old at once. And our grandfather is there, he's combing out your hair. There is a cycle to all things, and some of us, we need help to grow with. So in the dream, just see me there, flowers at my breast, and in my hands are tiny seeds, they're blooming in a nest. There is a cycle to all things, and some of us, we need help flying with these wings. Some of us, we need The male line. The male line. The male line.
I almost think I might have heard birds in there.
Yeah, there's lots of bird samples throughout that song. There's a
Yeah.
bird motif in all three of the songs, actually. Yeah, ties them together.
But what's interesting is like I'm still hearing birds. There's birds like outside my window right now. So I couldn't tell the difference.
That's so
And
perfect.
I'm not surprised by that. And so where I live in the Pacific Northwest, there's lots of crows. I believe it was like crows I was hearing. You might even hear it back in the recording.
I hope so. That's perfect. I feel so connected to crows, so I would love that.
I connect crows to Scorpio. I do.
Yep, me too.
Yeah. And, you know, they keepers of wisdom. And
Yes.
I feel that in this song. Did you say this was the third song that you wrote?
That's right. It's the one that feels the most I guess it has wisdom. It's looking back, you know, with the benefit of experience.
I felt it.
Yeah.
I felt it. I wrote some notes, and the thing that I wrote here was perspective and accrued wisdom that offers existential insight. And this feels like Scorpio in its evolved state.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
So it's cool to feel the progression of your process in your grief and in your release and acceptance. And I felt like it almost felt like, you know, the eagle's connected to Scorpio or the crow, and I felt connected to that. And there's the imagery of, you know, flying with these wings and stretching out forever to the sky. That's being brought up. And so just reflecting that back.
Definitely birds feel very, very connected to this record, but also, you know, I think especially crows and eagles I connect to Scorpio, but I think there's something about birds in general that feel very Scorpio, but also very Gemini to me.
I know it's where, and often that will happen, you know, when we look at our sun, moon, rising, all signs have things in common, but for sure, when you bring Gemini and Scorpio together, I feel birds there. Yeah. And I feel, you know, the duality of shadow and light.
Yep.
And I also makes me think of existential insight.
Yep.
Both Gemini and Scorpio do that for us. And there's a sense too, when thinking about Gemini with Scorpio, that there's, how do I put words to it? There's a sense of, one of the words you used before was mischief.
Yeah.
I do feel that with this combo. And
definitely,
you know, this ability to reflect on life. Gemini is very reflective and ponders. But so does Scorpio. So it's cool to see how many of these themes overlap for you.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, just in a very Gemini way, I have to say this, it's nice to hear these things and to have a platform where these things are being said about Gemini and Scorpio, because meme culture loves to trash us, to trash us.
It's true. And also because of that, I think that I find them to be like the favorite signs too. Like,
yeah, like the most maligned and I think the most secretly applauded.
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
I remember doing both the Queen of the Zodiac for Queen of Gemini and Queen of Scorpio. There was a certain like energy around it. Like people were like, yes, let's do this.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think it's cool. When I was looking over your bio, two of your greatest inspirations are Bjork and Kate Bush.
Yes.
And
Scorpio and a Leo.
Yeah, your midheaven and your rising. It made so much sense to me. And I feel both of their spirit in your work.
Thank you. When I was a kid, this is so embarrassing. When I was a kid, I used to pretend that they were my mums. That Bjork and Kate Bush were just my lesbian mums. And that was a great source of joy for me.
Power couple.
Yeah. Ultimate.
That's cool. Yeah, I feel that. I really feel that.
I love them. And I think they both embody their signs so potently as well. I think Kate Bush should have been a contender for Queen of Leo. I'm just saying.
I do too. I really do. And I remember when that was happening, that Mercury was retrograde during the Queen of Leo. And I was like, we need a reshot at this.
Yeah, totally. This one doesn't count. We got to go again.
Yeah. Maybe her Aquarian moon pulled her too into the other side of the wheel. I feel that Aquarius moon, but she's deeply Leo too.
She's so deeply Leo. She's, and yeah, in so many ways. I could honestly do a whole episode just about Kate Bush. So I will.
Let's do it sometime.
I would love that. I will go so deep on Kate Bush with you.
Okay, for the Leo full moon, I'll have you back on and we'll honor. And
we can talk about voice alchemy.
There we go.
Voice alchemy. Yeah.
Let's do it.
Done.
Cool. Yeah. So it's an honor for us to get to hear this new song. And when is that going to be released? And how might we connect more deeply to your music if we want?
Yeah, awesome. So that will be out on November 19 in Australia. So that will be November 20 for people in the Northern Hemisphere, I think. Is that right? It might change across countries. I know in the US.
Yeah, it could be the 18th. 20. I know. Y'all are in the future, actually. So
we are. Look, in some ways, very not in others, very draconian in others.
Yeah.
It'll be, let's say November 18, 19, 20. It's going to be around the full moon.
Okay.
Right? So just,
Taurus full moon, yeah.
That's right. And I planned that. It was very, very deliberate.
I love that. Is this, you're a witch and you follow astrology. So is this something that you do in releasing music and even recording videos? Do you look to the astrology?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I also often do charts for my songs and records as well. Really even just for me. So I understand, okay, how do you want to be presented to the world? What do you need to say that maybe I didn't pick up on when I was writing you,
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool.
In terms of connecting with me, my absolute favorite place to connect with people is my mailing list. So if you go to heirloom.net, that's heirloom with an E on the end, you can sign up. It's called the Dream Army. And the whole premise is radical softness is power. So it's like a little community. We share art. We talk about tarot and astrology. I share music with you guys before it goes to anyone else. And for cycles, actually, I'm doing a little online interactive experience that's free. So if you sign up, you can be part of that if you would like to.
Cool. I'm going to sign up.
Yeah, I would love you to.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I'll put a link to that in the show notes and also to, your social media and
awesome
places to find your music. So you all can check that in the show notes. And yeah, let's all stay connected. We're all part of the same cosmic family. And it's been so cool to chat with you. Literally, we could talk all day about astrology.
So easily.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. It's such a great honor. I feel very, very blessed.
Yeah, I think it's also cool. This feels Gemini too. I think we should just give a shout out to it that my friend Terrell messaged me and was like, oh, wait, we know each other. And Terrell's like an old friend from the past too. And I think that maybe that's how you found out about my work originally.
No, which makes it even more bizarre. Okay, so just really briefly.
Okay.
So I found out about your work from a beautiful friend of mine in New York, Dee Dee Dame. Shout out to Dee Dee Dame.
Okay.
So I was in New York for the first time. I listened to every single episode of your podcast while I was over there, the entire backlog, walking around the streets of New York.
Oh my gosh.
And it's around the time that I chose the name Lilith. Like so many synchronicities sort of happened around that time and through Cosmic Cousins. And then I, by chance, hired Terrell as a tarot reader for a little tarot collective I was running at the time. Didn't know that you knew each other, and then found out through him. And I was like, whoa.
Gotcha. Wow.
This is in Australia. I hired him, you know?
Right. Yes. And me and Terrell were friends back in New York, and then he moved to different places, and it's been all around. But
Cosmic cousins.
We're all connected, and that's cool. I'm glad that I brought that little story up. And so thank you for being on the show with us today, and wishing for you a easeful and restful Scorpio season. And I'm going to continue to listen to your music as I move through this threshold of this time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, as always, for tuning into Cosmic Cousins. Again, my name is Jeff Hinshaw. If you'd like to work with me one-on-one for an astrology reading, tarot reading, or mentorship, please visit CosmicCousins.com. If you value the show and would like to support me and the Cosmic Cousins team, please visit patreon.com/CosmicCousins. Follow us on Instagram, leave a review, and share with a loved one or a friend. As always, it's an honor for us to be here with you in this way. Take sweet care, cousins, and remember, deep breaths.